You are listening to Hilary Topper on Air, the small business podcast to help you grow both personally and professionally. And now, here's your host, Hilary Topper.
Endurance sports races should be more than a test of physical activity. They should be exhilarating, unforgettable experiences that inspire athletes to push their limits and excel, driven by fun. When athletes embrace the thrill of competition with enjoyment, they unlock untapped potential, igniting a passion for excellence and redefining how we approached racing. I'm Hilary Topper, and this is Hilary Topper on Air, the Endurance Sports Edition. Today, we have a very special guest joining us. He is the president and CEO of Alpha Win, formerly known as HITS Endurance, a company dedicated to providing athletes with unforgettable racing experiences. Please welcome Tommy Struzzieri. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Hilary. Appreciate having me on.
So, can you tell us a little bit about Alpha Win and its mission?
Sure. To go back to what you mentioned, HITS Endurance was our prior name, and started by my father, Tom Struzzieri, in 2011. And his goal, again, was to make the sport accessible, the sport of triathlon accessible to all types of skill levels, from your recreational athlete to a person that's new to the sport, and all the way up to possibly a pro person competing at the races. So our motto was a distance for everyone, which, even though we've rebranded to Alpha Win, we've kept that same motto, a distance for everyone. So I think that my family's always been in the equestrian sports world, and the idea of a distance for everyone came from that same model, the business model of having an event where you have professional athletes and the recreational athlete at the same event, and it really adds to the experience. While our event doesn't necessarily attract professionals as much as it does, other people, which is totally what we're going for. It does attract the people that want to go longer distances. So we've expanded. We have done some running races now. The Hudson Valley Marathon, you'll probably mention at some point. We don't just do a marathon at the Hudson Valley Marathon. It's a 10K, 5K, half marathon, and then 1 mile fun run. We try to do that so that you come to the race and become inspired by these athletes doing the half marathon or the marathon or the long course triathlon. It's quite a athletic feat that most people would, when they first look at it, they say, I can't do a triathlon. That's the first comment I get, right, Hilary? The first comment you get is, can't do a triathlon. But then when they see some other people doing it, they become inspired. So that was the goal of our business plan.
Yeah, I love that. And it just makes it accessible for anybody. Like, there are some people out there who, feel a little intimidated by the swim, and that would stop them from doing a triathlon, but you have duathlons, so they could do that. Or maybe they had a running injury. Like, I've had several of those. And just want to do an aqua bike. And again, you have that. And I love that about you guys. Like, that just makes it so accessible and just so much fun. So let's talk a little bit about what sets you guys apart from other race companies out there. Talk a little bit about some of the races that you have. And I know you have a new one coming up in California, so let's hear all about it.
Yeah, so I think you hit the nail on the head there when you mentioned, those people who don't like to swim, or are uncomfortable in the water. I think that kind of it correlates to a lot of the things we do in our races. What sets us apart is we are really catering towards the beginners. So when you do come for a swim, you the music is not blaring in your face when you get in there. Nobody's hyping you up as you get into the water, which has its time and place. But in that situation, people kind of want to be relaxed. I'll do a meeting on the beach before, and I'll explain the courses, and I'll say, just stay relaxed. You don't win the race in the swim. It's a very personal touch. Our races, I try to know as many names as I can, although I struggle sometimes. You know, I'm not the best at names, but I know faces, and and they know my face. They know my team. My team welcomes you when you get to the race. You don't necessarily have to show up. Well, you know, perhaps some other larger races or more reputable brands, you show up a little earlier for the race. You have to go on Wednesday to pick up your packet. Our races, you can come on race day to pick up your packet. So it's not supposed to be something that takes you away from your regular 9-to-5 job. You still be able to train for it. You know, we have longer cutoff times. We're a little more relaxed on our cutoff times, and that's kind of how we know it's really catered towards that recreational athlete who also has to work and has a life and doesn't need to, you know. Granted, you travel to Napa Valley or a new race, Lake San Antonio, and it'll be a great weekend for you. And every race we have is in that iconic location with a great backdrop. They might always not be the flattest of courses, but they have a great scenic views in them. But you know, you travel there and you can just go away for the weekend rather than going away for the entire week and having to take off work.
Right, right. You know, and I love that you have a little bit flexible cutoff times. You know, I was just talking to an athlete today who was saying that, you know, he signed up for a couple of these Ironman events and they cut him out right away. You know, so here he spends like hundreds of dollars on these races and can't even race them, you know, so it's kind of like unfortunate, right?
Yes. So people ask, that's the number one question. You come in for a new, first, actually, the number one question I get when somebody shows up to a triathlon is, how's the triathlon go? Is it swim first? The day of the triathlon, I say, really? That you haven't studied that at all before you came? So you have to understand that these people, that even the people doing Ironman, you know, they just want to do it to get that under their belt. They don't even know what triathlon is.
No.
So
Yeah.
they see the athlete guide, which we put out a month before the race, and they see that there's cutoff times, and they say, "Well, what if I don't make the cutoff times?" And I say to them that really the swim, I've never cut anybody off in the swim. the bike, you know, really it's a little relaxed in the bike. You know, really it comes down to, are you willing to finish? And I come to you and I say to you in person, I'll walk right up to you and say, when you're struggling in that cutoff time, and I say to you, you know, you're missing the cutoff time. What do you think here? And normally an athlete will cut themselves off rather than me having to cut them off.
Yeah.
You know, the best thing about a race is, again, is we have all different distances in one day. So I never cut off anybody for the shorter distances, right? It's only for that longest distance we have in the same day. And I don't think I've cut off anybody this year. So
That's great.
or in the last 12 months.
That's great. All right, so let's talk a little bit. You know, you talked a little bit about your Hudson Valley Marathon. I did that last year. That was the first year that you had put it on. I absolutely love that run. That run is magnificent. You know, when you're running across that Hudson Valley Bridge. Can you talk a little bit about that and that I'm going to be speaking there
Yeah.
this year. So let's talk about that.
Well, we're very excited to have you speaking at this
Thank
year's
you.
race. It's the Hudson Valley Marathon at the walkway over the Hudson. So it's the longest pedestrian bridge in America. And it's really some great views. I live here in the Hudson Valley in New York, and you take for granted the views that you see every day. The Hudson River is just pristine to look at, and you know, the mountains in the background. You know, that's always what I preferred. I preferred that to a beach backdrop. So you'll run over so we start on one side of the river, we run over the Hudson River, and then it's all paved, wide trails the whole time. We go to the Dutchess County. So from Ulster County to Dutchess County, we run on the Dutchess County Rail Trail, wide and shaded the whole time. It's a May race, so it really tailors towards those who don't like the heat too much. So that no, I don't think anybody is interested in going into a marathon or a half marathon or a 5K or 10K for that matter, and wanted to run it at 85 degrees and when it starts to heat up. But the shade really helps, even if that is the case on that day. And of course, we're excited to have you speaking the day prior. So our team had kind of got together and we said, we really want to do some extra things for this race. And we said, who can we bring in that would attract our type of athlete and people would be excited about? And you were the first name to come to mind, and we appreciate you accepting the pre-race speech, because I think people who you represent that athlete that we want to represent. That I hate to say the word normal, but someone who's not a elite or looking to win the race, but still wants to win in their own way. And I think that's why you were chosen. So we really appreciate that. So we're doing a pre-race party, as you know, on the Dutchess County side of the walkway over the Hudson is what it's called, of the bridge. And hopefully we can come out and they can buy your books and maybe you can sign them for them. That'd be great.
Absolutely. That would be awesome. Someone down the block, it's funny, a person who lives down the block from me, we actually grew up in the same town in Long Beach. And he said to me the other day, "You're the average, typical triathlete." For everyone, the everyday for everyone triathlete. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I like that. So yeah, so it should be a great event. I have a discount code and I will offer that in the blog so you could sign up. I think it's Hilary for 20% off. So I'd love to see you out there and I'd love to see you at this book signing. Before we go any further, I just have to say that I am so appreciative of our sponsors and must take the time out to thank them. Please support our sponsor and tell them that you heard about them on Hilary Topper on Air. Special thanks to Play Try, Swim, Bike, Run, a retail and online bike shop and multi-sport specialist. Now back to you, Tommy. So, let's talk about some of the popular race destinations that Alpha Win hosts. You're in so many different states now. What's on the horizon? What do you have now for this year, and what's on the horizon for maybe next year?
I don't want to share too much with you, Hilary, but there are some things in the back of my head that I've been working on. So yeah, we start off our year in Florida, in Sarasota, Florida, the first week of the year in January, and we cater to the Florida triathlete with our Sarasota Triathlon, which is a nice. It's at Nathan Benderson Park, a very flat course for the run. The spectators can watch their swim, bike, run. It's a place where you don't need to swim in the ocean, and you're in Florida, which is great because, again, I mentioned the swim is always the toughest barrier to get into triathlon, and that's a lake swim, which is uncommon in those Florida races. And we stay in Florida for a couple of races. We have a marathon in Ave Maria, Florida, which is near Naples. Flat course again. We go to Ocala, which is next weekend. We go to Ocala and we do our Ocala Triathlon, again, lake swim, and in Central Florida, which is a really great area, shaded trail run. And then we go to California. So you mentioned I have a new race, Lake San Antonio Triathlon. Sounds like it's in Texas, but it's actually in near San Luis Obispo, between that and Paso Robles. So I have that race, which I'm really excited about, and the Napa Valley, of course, the iconic Napa Valley Triathlon that people kind of has been a staple of our business for the last 10 years, since the very beginning of our business. So between those two races, we have a June Lake, California race near Mammoth Lakes. and we go to Palm Springs, back to Napa. Palm Springs is our USA team. We recognize the military championship this year, and then and we end off with we do a turkey trot here in my hometown, and we do oh, and of course the Lake George Triathlon. And you mentioned Lake George Triathlon and Hudson Valley Triathlon here in New York. So we really cover the Florida, California, and New York markets. You know, the Lake George Triathlon is a really exciting race. That's probably our biggest race of the year. Happens Labor Day weekend in Lake George, and we close the town down to run on the center, through the center of the village. So, and the best swim, all these places, that's probably the best swim. And I always say rolling. I went to a rolling bike ride. I went to a expo last weekend, and the lady said to me, "You always say rolling," and she was she was joking around because you can't, as a promoter, you don't want to say hilly, right? And so you always say rolling. It's rolling hills because you're going up and down. And she said you should say hilly, but some courses are hilly and some courses are flat. So we have opportunities to PR, opportunities to challenge yourself if you're better on the hills.
Absolutely. And do you have any stories that you could share with us? Some success stories from athletes or, races that you've done?
Specifically, top of my head, I think that there's been some athletes, I know that we have some para athletes come to our Sarasota race. So just to begin the year, their stories are quite impactful to you, when they and I think that's when they pull whoever it is in the chair through the bike and the run, and then they for the swim they pull them in the kayak. So some of those athletes are really, you think that it's hard enough to get into the sport, and now you have this extra hurdle to overcome. So those are some great stories, and I think some of them are on our website that we've done. I think the para triathlon world doesn't necessarily get enough credit because it's not as popular, because there's not as many of them. But certainly there's some great people out there. Deb Karabet, if you know her, that from USAT, does a great job with the para triathlon division and does some camps. That's really, but there's so many people that overcome challenges to get there, whether it's para or whether it's the fact that they want to lose weight or an injury. You mentioned that, an injury. I'm gonna have another surgery in a month, and I have had a surgery, because we're runners and we get hurt, right? So overcoming those things are really what inspires me to continue to do what I do. So specific stories, I think there's so many of them that I can't really pick one, but it's every day, just people overcoming the fear of the water, or the fear of clipping in on the bike, or the fact that they don't think they can do it, which is pretty much what everyone says when they look at triathlon. They say, "I can't do a triathlon." I say, well, you can do a triathlon, because I know you can do the swim, you just got to do the training, and you do the bike, you can do each one of these things. You need to come to a race and see who's doing it. And then you'll be inspired.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. Now, I know that you also are, you do endurance sports. Can you share with us a little bit about you personally?
Sure. I'm probably not the greatest of all time, but I try to do my best. I think I started out at a young age coming to these races when my father was putting them on, and he was interested in this sport. I told you it stemmed from the equestrian world, so I've been around sports my whole life. Big sports person myself, a big basketball and all the team sports, but also I got into track and field in junior high and high school. Ended up running for Syracuse Division I track and field program, cross country. I wasn't there too long because I wanted to get this business going, but I certainly experienced a lot during that time at Syracuse running track and cross country. And now I've become, I'm just trying to continue to pursue that dream of getting the most out of myself and running and biking and working on my swimming. Of course, I've never been the best swimmer of all time, but when I was younger, I had gotten the swims were shorter when I was younger, so I was able to compete in triathlon, and ended up being an All-American when I was young, during those junior high days, and then focused on running, and now I'm back to focusing on the triathlon and trying to get healthy. I mentioned I'm having a surgery in a month and a half after the marathon, of course, for a hip. I've had a surgery on another hip. It's just the way the sport goes. Since I got out of Syracuse, I broke my foot. I broke, I've torn both of my hips now. So, but I'm still here doing it, right? And I'm still planning on the end of this year getting back to it and continue to train.
Absolutely. Well, good luck to you on the surgery. I'm sure it'll go
Thank you.
great. So finally, where can our audience contact you and learn more about the races that you put on at Alpha Win?
Sure. So our website is alpha.win, ALPHA.WIN, not .com. It's .win. A little more creative there. And that's where you can find out all of our upcoming races. We have a news section for all, like some of these stories we were talking about. And then you can sign up there. Otherwise, we have our Facebook and Instagram. Every day we're posting a new thing on that. So it's Alpha Win Racing. And the email info@alpha.win is always being answered. You might think it's an info email, but that's part of our staple. We first of all always answer the email, and if you call the phone right now, if you called our phone number on the website, you'd pick up immediately to a real person. Immediately.
Wow.
It would probably be Allison, of course, but Allison's better customer service than me, and she would answer your question. If you had some kind of issue, we would try to work that out for you immediately, on the phone, pretty much all the time. So that's what separates us.
That's awesome. Really awesome. Yeah, how many times you call these places and you're like on hold forever. So
Yes.
that's really awesome to know. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I want to thank our sponsor once more, Play Try Swim Bike Run, a retail bike shop and multi-sport specialist. For more information, visit playtrystore.com. And I'd like to thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. If you want more information on this show or any other show, visit our website, hilarytopper.com, or you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Alexa, Google Play, you name it, we're out there. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.